Welcome to the Far Out. In this segment, we're going to talk about all things that one day will help India qualify for the FIFA World Cup. But let's talk about money first, shall we? Every episode, we'll talk about one element that we believe that India needs to focus on if it really wants to play in the Football World Cup. Each element as important as the other. Imagine them as one of the cogs of the wheel that will take India over the line. For today's episode, we are going to cover our second element, which is money. No surprises there, as it is already given in the video title. Now, exactly what are we talking about? As in India, we can't keep cricket or Bollywood out of a conversation. We will do the same. We'll form an analogy with cricket. Now, let's wind the clock back to year 2002. If someone in India who is in his teens would go to his parents asking, "Mom, Dad, I want to be a professional cricketer," 9 out of 10 parents will tell him, "No. It's either a doctor or engineer for you." 1 out of 10 will say, "You know what, give it a try. There's off chance you might make the Ranji team, play for India, who knows. Maybe down the line you'll make a living for yourself. Worth taking a chance." Now we come back to the present day in 2022. Imagine the same scenario. Someone in India who is in his teens goes to his parents asking the same question. Now instead of 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 parents might say, "Go for it." The reason? Since 2008 in India, franchise-based cricket has opened up avenues which, to be honest, didn't exist before in our part of the world. Now we don't necessarily need to play in the first team to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can be part of support staff, a talent scout, part of coaching programs, in sport event management, and still make decent amount of money. And if you're part of the playing roster, nothing like it. We are talking about a windfall. To just put things in context, a player who sits on the bench during the entire 6 weeks of the tournament ends up making in that period alone 5 to 6 times of what someone who makes working in the middle management of a multinational company annually. The point that we're trying to make is that cricket is a very lucrative career choice in India than what it was, let's say, 20 years ago. There are more opportunities to break into this inner circle, if I may, of Indian cricket, which was not possible before 2008. Now, in order to make football more appealing to our fellow Indians, it has to be a lucrative career choice too. Now again, with the Indian Super League, with money getting pumped into Indian football, we are moving in the right direction. But there's still work to be done. Now let's talk about another cricketing nation which has not only a football league of its own, but also played in a few football World Cups. We are going to talk about Australia. And most importantly, how India should maybe model or incorporate Australia's sports structure heading into the future. As is the case in the United States and Canada, association football is most commonly referred to in Australia as soccer. We did some research to find what the average salary is in the A-League, which is the highest level professional men's football league in Australia. So that values approximately 135,000 Australian dollars for the 2020-21 season. It was 180,000 in 2018. COVID definitely had an impact. As it's a cricketing nation, we were able to get details on what the figures of Cricket Australia contracted players are. With their retainer fees and international match fees, plus the fact they play franchise cricket T20 leagues across the world, it seems pretty lopsided as compared to other players who play domestic cricket. But when you add the remaining bunch of players into the mix, we can speculate an average cricket professional player in Australia earns around 120,000 and 135,000 Australian dollars too. Now, unlike in India, football in Australia is not only competing with cricket, but also competing with 2 other sports, which are quite a big deal down under. First is Australian rules football. Now, the only figures we could find was the average salary of a listed footy player who plays in the AFL. Therefore, no rookies, and that value is 370,000 Australian dollars, a figure which is considerably higher as compared to cricket and football. Then there's rugby too, where the NRL or Rugby League average salary is pretty similar to that of AFL, 370,000 Australian dollars. Now we couldn't get the figures for Rugby Union, but given the popularity of Rugby League in Australia, we can speculate it's lower than that of Rugby League. Now again, Aussie rules, rugby and football are contact sports and not everyone's cup of tea. But our point is, if you are a kid growing up in Australia who wants to be a professional sports person, you have all these career choices available, which pay you good money at the end of the day. And moreover, Australia is an out and out sporting nation. Not only these 4 sports, you have options like tennis, swimming, hockey, among others. Australia always finishes among the top 10 in the Olympic medals tally. Go figure. Again, with the Indian Super League, things are moving in the right direction for football in India. In fact, as per the Professional Footballers Association report, Indian footballers are getting paid better than their counterparts in Australia. But it has to sustain for a longer period of time before we start to see a change in the mindset towards football in India. When kids growing up in India and their parents start looking at football as a lucrative career option. Again, we are just scratching the surface here. There's so much to talk about money, player salaries, etc. regarding football in India. We will definitely revisit this topic in the future. Now we're going to move on to our next segment, in which we go talk about the origin episode takeaway. We covered the origins of football in Brazil. Do check out that video here. So what should India learn from Brazil? What was maybe one takeaway from exploring their origins? Again, what we might talk about would not be only specific to Brazil. We might observe the same fact in some other footballing nation and vice versa. But for the sake of this series of videos, we are going to consider the following as the only takeaway from Brazil. And our takeaway from Brazil is the wealth disparity. Let me expand on that to make it more comprehensible. Among all the countries that we're going to cover in the Football Origins series, Brazil is probably the country which is similar to India when it comes to wealth disparity. Given its population, which stands at over 200 million, which is only 15% of that of India, but still the highest in Latin America. Now, you may ask what it has got to do with football. Well, when it comes down to the essentials, all one needs to play football is football. The most popular sport on the planet is also popular because of its affordability. One only needs an open space and a football to enjoy a game with his or her mates. No additional equipment, of course, maybe a pair of shoes, but that's it. But then again, we are so obsessed with playing one sport that we tend to forget how easy it is to play football in the streets, parking lots, pavements, at home, etc. Just imagine that one day football in India reaches even 10 or 20% of what the phenomenon of cricket is today in India. And given the affordability of the sport, we will start seeing talent coming through from all the sections of the society. It doesn't matter if you are rich or poor. If you are good enough, you will have your opportunity. And isn't that what football in Brazil is all about? We're not saying Brazil is unique in that sense, but given its population, it's a country that manifests this phenomenon in football the most. We will briefly give you some statistics about football in Brazil, which we didn't speak about in the origin episode. Brazil is a member of FIFA since 1923. Today it has over 29,000 registered clubs spread across the country. Brazil has 2.1 million registered licensed players, that is 1% of its total population, which plays football in some capacity, that is amateur, semi-professional or professional. However, if we take into account the non-registered players, it is estimated that Brazil has about 13 million soccer players, accounting for more than 6% of its entire population. Now, if we were to have the same proportion of people playing football in India, we will need a total of 85 million, that is 8.5 crores. So here are our two takeaways from two Football Origins episodes so far. Plenty more to come. Now we move on to the next segment, which is India's football history. We had made a separate video of our football history between the period of 1947 and 1954, including the time we qualified for the Football World Cup. You can check out the video here. As for this episode, we are going to cover the exploits of Indian football team between the period of 1955 and 1962. As we saw previously, this period we are still in the golden era of Indian football. After a brief hiatus, Saeed Abdul Rahim, the greatest Indian coach till date, was back again as the Indian team's manager. After the disappointment of the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki, the Indian team in the next Olympics in Melbourne went on to achieve the team's greatest result in a competitive tournament. In the quarterfinals against Australia played at MCG, thanks to Neville D'Souza's hat-trick, the first scored by an Asian in Olympic history, India beat the Aussies 4-2. The team finished in 4th place, losing the bronze medal match to Bulgaria. After this, India participated in the 1958 Asian Games in Tokyo, where it once again finished 4th, losing the bronze medal match to Indonesia this time. For the World Cup in 1958 in Sweden, there was only one spot allocated between the Asian and African Confederation. That is only one team advancing from the two continents. Again, this was a different time. The World Cup was still primarily a European and Latin American affair. The Indian team did not even enter the qualification round. In fact, they did not enter the qualification round of a World Cup till 1986, 28 years later. Israel was the team to advance from Asia and Africa to play in the World Cup that year. However, they did that by not playing a single game as all of its opponents withdrew. FIFA had ruled that no team would qualify without playing at least one match, except for the defending champions and the host. and Israel had yet to play any. A special playoff was created between Israel and the runner-up of one of the European Confederation groups, where the teams played against each other on a home and away basis, with the winner qualifying for the World Cup. It was against Wales that Israel had to play this playoff round. Wales won both the fixtures, thus qualifying for the World Cup, which also meant that no Asian team qualified for the World Cup that year. India began the 1960s with the 1960 AFC Asian Cup qualifiers. Despite the qualifiers for the West Zone being held in Kochi, India finished last in their qualification group and thus missed out on the tournament. In the 1960 Olympics in Rome, the Indian team held France to a draw and gave a scare to the Hungarian team before bowing out of the group stages. Despite the setback, India went on to win the gold medal during the Asian Games in 1962 in Jakarta. The team defeated South Korea 2-1 in the final to win their second major championship post-independence. For the World Cup in 1962 in Chile, there was only one intercontinental playoff spot allocated for the Asian Confederation. Again, no direct qualification for an Asian team. The Indian team did not even enter the qualification round. South Korea won the Asian round to qualify for the playoff, but they were defeated in the playoff round, which also meant that no Asian team qualified for the World Cup that year. So that wraps up this segment 2, the Indian team's history between 1955 and 1962. Let us know in the comments below of what you thought of this episode of taking India to the World Cup. What you believe about how important money is for Indian football, about our takeaway from the Brazil episode. If there's anything that we missed about Indian football's exploits between the period in 1955 and 1962. We are going to talk about our football history, the football history of other nations, do some introspection along the way as a footballing nation, and most importantly, what India can do to get our time in the sun at the biggest sporting event of them all.